Good evening and welcome to the Waterford Township 2018 Police and Fire Special Assessment Town Hall meeting. I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. Before tonight's meeting commences, I'd like everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Scout Matthew.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, the purpose of tonight's meeting is educational for our public to understand the necessity for the Special Assessment District for Waterford's police and fire departments. So I ask I'll be courteous, be understanding. Everybody will be given the opportunity to speak, pro, con, in favor of, questions, answers throughout the course of the evening. As the night progresses, after we do our presentations, people would like to speak, I would ask them to line up here on my right-hand side, down this outside aisle, come around here to the podium. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak. I'm assuming multiple people get up and want to speak. So 3 minutes to speak. Like I say, you can direct questions, you can share ideas. However you want to do it, I just ask that people remain orderly and respectful on both sides, you along with us. So. We're going to open up with our presentation from the police, the fire departments first, and then I will give everybody the budget end of things, and then from there we'll open it up to the public. So, start out. Chief Underwood.
Thank you. If you'll flip to the first slide, please. So I'm going to start with a comparison of where the police department was in 2010 and show you where we're at today. And the reason that we use 2010 is because that's the time that economically the bottom fell out and our organization was reduced significantly. In 2010, we were staffed with 81 full-time police officers. If you'll flip to the next slide, please. Today, we're at 54 full-time police officers. You can see a significant reduction. That reduction of 27 police officers equates to a 33% reduction in staffing. The national average for police organizations in the United States is 1.8 police officers per 1,000 residents. In 2010, if you'll go back, please. In 2010, at 81 officers, we were still below the national average at 1.13 per 1,000 residents. Today, at 54, we're at 0.753, which is significantly below the national average. The workload has not subsided to coincide with the reduction in staffing. While it's true that the men and women of our organization have done a fantastic job fighting crime and helping to reduce crime in this township, and they have in most every area significantly, the workload has not subsided, and that is reflected in the number of calls for service. In 2010, the Police Dispatch Center handled 38,000 calls for service. In 2017, we handled 45,000, which is an increase of 16%. So our workload has actually increased while our staffing has decreased. Even with the addition of the police officers that we hope to gain if we're successful with the special assessment, our national average only climbs to 0.864, so we're still below the national average. But we're confident with the number of police officers that we'll be able to, and we are able to put on the street, and will continue to be able to put on the street with the increase of these at least 9 police officers from special assessment. The issue is not necessarily a growth issue. The issue is sustainability. And the reason is because if we continue to decrease our staffing levels, and this won't be done by reduction in budget or reduction in personnel, this will be done by attrition, because over the next 7 years, 38 of our 54 veteran police officers are eligible to retire. And they go in such increments where it'll be almost impossible to recruit, hire, vet, and train these police officers so that we can continue to operate at the levels that we're at. The recruiting issue is a national problem. Across the country, police agencies are having difficulty filling vacant positions, and in this case, we're able to fill vacant positions, and we've been doing it fairly successfully over the last 2 years. But as more retire, that'll get increasingly harder. As well, a problem is training the people, even if we are able to recruit them and bring them in, because in some cases we have to wait for people to finish police academy, which is 17 weeks long. Once they get out of police academy and we are able to hire them after a testing process, background investigation, physical, and other requirements, they come on and they have to go through a field training program, which in some cases could be 6 months or more. And then there's an additional period which will fill out the rest of their 1-year probationary period. We've been successful at this point only because we've had limited retirements and we've been able to keep up. The issue is, part of the issue is that between 2010 and 2015-16, there wasn't any hiring going on. There was no additional hiring going on. So in a perfect world, in a police agency, as people retire, you're able to replace those positions with new employees, and the age levels are staggered in such a way that you can keep up with the attrition and continue to train. By not hiring anybody over that period of time, our police force has gotten older and gotten into a position where they're able to retire, and we don't have any of those new bodies to fill those positions. In addition, as I said, the workload has not necessarily decreased. While crime has gone down, calls for service have gone up. And as it relates to investigations, we've continued to assign and investigate relatively close to the same number of complaints. We have 1,995 cases that were assigned to detectives back in 2010, at which time we had 8 detectives. And today, we're assigning 2018 cases where we only have 5 detectives. So we need some assistance there as well. All this done, we've decreased the funding for the police department itself has decreased by 16%. We went from $15,128,000 to $12,802,000. So while we've reduced our staffing levels by 33%, and we've reduced the national average, or the average police officer per 1,000 by 38%, we've increased the number of calls for service, and we're about the same for cases that were investigated. So the workload, like I said, has basically gone up in a lot of cases. Like I said, we're confident with where we're at today. We're confident with the job that our men and women do. We're confident with the kind of service that we provide. The residents of this township have come to expect a certain level of service from the police department, and we've come to expect the same level from ourselves. So this special assessment, if we're successful, will allow us to continue to operate at the level that we are, continue to deliver the same level of service that we are today, and continue to allow us to be able to staff our department adequately. As we move forward and continue to stagger the ages of those people that are employed by the police department, those 9 will be additional, will continue to help us do additional things. But right now, the main focus is sustainability. As I said, we want to be able to continue to do what we're doing now into the future.
Thank you, Chief Underwood. Chief Lyman, Weber Regional Fire.
Yeah, as far as this, oh, that was hot. That's not even that close to me. As far as sustainability for the fire department, we have two needs. that this special assessment does address. Trucks and manpower. Trucks being a very large cost for us. If you go to the next slide for me. Yeah, no, you're sorry. The town, we had a scheduled plan to purchase fire engines and the economy crashed. And so that plan was wiped out. And as such, we've not purchased a fire truck since 2002. Waterford Township has not. We did purchase 2 last year through some savings that we created, and they will be delivered here next month. But this is the first purchase we've had since 2002. Next slide, please. Our trucks are very high mileage, and they are old for running in the fire service as busy as we are. Current cost of a fire engine is about $450,000, and $200,000 for a rescue ambulance, and then our 27-year-old tower truck is $1.3 million to replace. So we have very, very large capital costs that are needed for sustainability, as Chief Underwood addressed with the police department. Next slide, please. That's not for me, that's feedback from them. Waterford lost 3 positions in 2015 due to economic conditions. We've been able to benefit from the SAFER grant, but actually from 2 SAFER grants. It does expire in the fall of this year. The hiring of 5 firefighters will replace those 3 and put another 2 more on the line to keep fire stations open and keep our fire trucks on the road after the SAFER grant. Go ahead to the next slide. The fire department's call volume has gone up 31% in 6 years, from 13,095 to 9,992. Significant, that is significant increases in call volume. Our ambulances are constantly busy, our engines are going all over the place, passing each other on calls, and we are in need of trucks and we are in need of manpower for this special assessment. I'll save my other comments for questions if anybody has any.
Okay, thanks, Chief Leonard. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll keep this simple. The slides are self-explanatory, but as you can see, the 2018 general police and fire funds combined project, and this is projected cost over revenue, are $1,081,000. And again, that's projected. We won't know till the end of the year, but our numbers with our budget department are always pretty close. So that's what we're looking at. And this is an eye-opener because, again, every year it costs a little bit more and a little bit more. And with the lack of revenue to fund this, the gap gets bigger. Next slide, please. This slide shows almost 74% of the 2018 expenditures go to public safety. And that's what the resources allocated for the fire, police, and fire. This clearly shows our commitment to our community to have our first responders out there to take care of us. But again, that is 74% or almost 3/4 of the projected expenses go to public safety. So they are our 2 most expensive entities here in the township. Next. From 2008 to 2013, nearly a 38% reduction in our residential taxable values right there. Now with Headley, there's no mechanism in place to stop a downward turn or a floor like we had before it. The bottom fell out of it, but Headley does limit us at 5% or the rate of inflation, which is less. Well, if you're behind and you're recovering at the rate of inflation, you're going to remain behind. You're never going to get any farther ahead in that regard. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a graph right here, revenue trends, state shared revenue. You go back to 2001, the level of 7.6 million to 2018 is 1.6 million less than that than it was in 2001. So that being said, that tells you how far behind we are on the numbers of state revenue sharing. Everything rolled back. The state had their budget problems too, but as you look at the structure of government, federal, state, county, and then municipalities. So we're the low man on the totem pole. Not complaining, not crying about it, but the bottom line is that's the reality of it. And everybody else gets their money before we do. So the chart itself shows we've recovered what it was at the low times there in 2009, 2010, and 2011, but still, you know, you go down the road 17 years and we're still 1.6 million behind where we were right at the turn of the century. Next slide, please. Okay, this shows here that Waterford has 127 fewer employees than they did in 2003. Over 20% of them were police officers. As a whole, right now we're back to 1980 staffing levels here at the township. And again, that speaks volumes for the quality of people we have here at the township and the job they're able to do, but we're out of options. The work still has to be done, but at the same time, we've got fewer people to do it with, and again, people can burn out after a period of time, and the last thing we want is our first responders burned out on the job. So if it does, you know, the consequences could be something we don't even want to imagine. Next slide, please. Okay, this shows us where our property taxes go, okay? And if you look at that graph just very closely, I'll let you study it there for a second, but Waterford Township gets 21.79%, so let's just say we get roughly 22 cents on the dollar that we pay in actually comes back to the township, and the rest there is parted out. As you look at that, it goes everywhere, but again, it's just, we know what we pay, we might as well know what we get back and what our benefit is for it, and that's what we function off of. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the 2018 average residential tax bill right here. So you look where we were in 1997, and then you go back to where we are today, and we're almost where we were in 2003, and that is about $144 lower than what we were in 2008 when it peaked. So we're still, right now, you're paying average, this is average across the board, you'd be paying $144 more less this year than you did in 2008 when it peaked. Next slide, please. These are some of the things that we've done here at the township. Measures we've taken to confront the shortfall in recent years. We've closed all defined benefit pension systems for all new hires. We've closed employer-sponsored retiree health care benefits for almost all new hires, and we're working on the last group as we speak. Reduced staff from 347 in 2008 to 258 in 2018, or almost 26% reduction. Again, like I said earlier, we're at the 1980 employment levels. This is 2018. Cut health care for active employees, creating savings for township by higher copay and deductibles and lesser health plan for employees. Contract executed with the City of Pontiac to provide fire services is generating new revenue without raising taxes. It serves a purpose for the City of Pontiac, but also there's a 5% multiplier that kicked in last year, and that contract expands for the last 6 years of the 10-year contract at a 5% multiplier from what it was the year before. So again, that's what we've done that we could do, things that we have control over and things that we have the option to do, but you can only cut so much, and then there's nothing left to cut. So that said, I'd like to thank you for being patient and listening to our presentation. And again, as we open it for public comment, I'd like to ask each person to 3 minutes. I'd like to ask people to be courteous and respectful, as you always are, and direct your questions here to the board. And if there's a particular individual you'd like to direct the question to or have you answer that. Police questions, I'll forward to Chief Underwood. Fire questions, I'll forward to Chief Lang. So, anybody that would like to speak, I'd like to ask you to get up and go on that side of the room and line up along the wall there, and we'll call you down one at a time.
Gary, can I ask a question while we're waiting on that?
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to be out of order.
No, go ahead.
Maybe a clarification from the Fire Chief Lyman. You mentioned that the SAFER grant expires in this year, in fall of this year. with this SAD, we're trying to hire 5 firefighters. How many firefighters will we lose when we lose the SAFER grant?
The grant was for 39 positions, so we'll lose 34 positions.
So with the SAFER grant and the timing, you were able to hire 34 guys. We're going to lose 34 with our emergency federal funding.
Correct.
And we're trying to get back 5.
Correct.
If I could
Yes.
make a comment also. The supervisor indicated on one of the graphs the average tax bill that a homeowner in Waterford paid, and I have here my tax bill for my house from 2008 to 2018. And you can all do this yourselves at home if you go to the Treasurer's webpage and go to property taxes. They're all there from 2008 to 2018. So in 2008, the taxes I paid on my house was $2,827. The taxable value was $95,320. Taxes, $2,827. This year, I paid $2,248 property taxes. My property taxes are $600 less than they were in 2008. Hopefully in the next couple of days, we're going to get a screen up on our website where you'll be able to put your address in, and it will tell you exactly what this special assessment will cost you, given the taxable value of your property. But I can tell you that since 2008, my taxes have gone down $600, and they will not go up $600 with this special assessment.
Can I speak up on that too, Jerry? I think it's important to realize for all of us as taxpayers and for me in public service, is that $600 is cumulative. And so from 2008 to 2018, as you saw this drop, that $600 in 8, 9, 10 go down the line. Now you put that in terms of the entire township, and that number is astronomical as to what's been lost as far as revenue for the township and how that puts a strain on public safety, both police and fire.
Right around what kind of the townships as a whole, yeah, but it's police and fire, 2 highest funded groups.
Correct.
It is, and it's been ongoing since the bottom fell out of it. Like I said, it's starting to recover right now, but right at the rate of inflation, and that's it. Your assessed value may go up, and your taxable value will not raise any greater than the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is the lesser number. So. Okay.
Can I make a comment there?
Sure.
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. I enjoy my taxes going down because I give me more money to put into my property and my home, go on vacation and stuff. That's a good thing there. My question to, I guess it would be Supervisor Wallace, in 1980, what was the population compared to today?
The population numbers in 1980, I don't have. I know we maxed out at 77,000 residents.
64,000.
64,000.
About 8,000 more residents now than we were
Thank you, Gary.
in 1980.
Yep.
Okay. Now, one other thing about the SAD, does that include businesses too?
Yes. It's right
All
across the
property
board.
tax, straight across the board.
But there's such a big fluctuation in businesses, it's hard to average out the price of a business like it is for us. It's a big fluctuation. We got lower cost homes, and we got some high dollar homes in Lakes, but to come across with an average price for residential. There's a lot more residential in business, so that's why we showed it as residential, because residents are in the township where typically a lot of businesses aren't. So.
And I guess I got one more question for Chief Lyman. You say with this, has the SAFER grant been reapplied for? Have you reapplied
No,
for that grant?
not at this time. You can't apply for it while you're in the middle of one. You can apply for it when you're in the middle of one, but it doesn't work.
And you say
I tried that
once the
once,
SAFER
or two.
grant goes away, we're going to lose 5 firefighters.
We're going to lose 39.
We're going to lose, well, that's what was given to us from the federal government.
Correct.
So we're really not losing the firefighters per
Correct.
se. Okay.
We're not losing budget positions at this point. Correct.
Okay, it sounded like we were losing 5, and I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Does anybody else? Yeah. Any questions? Okay. Again, public.
I thought I'd get the public to win.
Come on up, sir, right here to the,
Maybe we did a really good job.
What did-
Presenting our case.
and you get questions, comments, anything is welcome.
Okay, most of what I have to say is mostly comments, but I want to address them to a number of people. Mr. Wall, Mr. Underwood, and Mr. Lyman. And my first question is...
Sir, before you start, could I have your name and
Dave
address?
Siplick. I've been a Waterford resident for over 40 years.
And your address?
I live in Lakewood Drive in Waterford,
Thank you.
and I'm sure you have my address, because I know my taxes do. Isn't it true, to Mr. Wall, isn't it true that as the volume of residents increase, the amount of money or taxes will also increase with it? And also, as the value of property increases again, and property is increasing, because you can't hardly buy a house in Waterford anymore, because they're all pretty much purchased up, that'll bring additional funding and taxes into the township also, right?
Yes, sir, and it comes on cap too when the houses turn over.
And to Mr. Underwood, Pontiac at one time had their own police department, and they've opted to merge with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. Is that something that you might want to consider for Waterford Township? And heaven forbid, I'd like to have you guys stay forever, but you know, it might be something worthwhile taking a look at, right?
It's not anything that I would consider as the chief of police in this township. It's not anything that I would consider as a resident of this township. Quite honestly, the cost per officer is higher than what it costs us to hire, clothe, equip, pay for benefits for one of our officers. Most recently, there was a request made by one of the local courts about a sheriff's deputy to take the place of one of their security personnel. And the cost of that one sheriff's deputy was upwards of $146,000. For us, at Top Pay, we can hire, equip, pay for benefits, and everything else that goes along with it for one police officer for about $126,000.
So you're saying our costs in Waterford are cheaper than the cost in Oakland County?
It is. In addition to that, if something that is discussed all the time when you talk about cooperative efforts like that, we already have the infrastructure in place to be able to do the things we do. We have the equipment, we have the vehicles, we have the building, we have the dispatch center, we have the dispatching equipment, all those things. Once you give those, because part of those contracts are, when people make those moves, is they give all that stuff over to the entity that they're going to contract with. And once you give all that stuff over, there's really no going back, because the amount of money that it would cost to recoup all that stuff and start again would be astronomical.
And you're absolutely right, but on the other hand, that may not be a bad thing either, so. Yeah.
Well, in addition to the cost, there's also a question of, like I said earlier, what the residents of this township have come to expect, and that's a level of service. And a level of service provided by people that work here every day, live here, all of them live here in the township, have been invested in this township for a number of years, anywhere from, especially with our staffing, anywhere, from 5 to 25 years. There's no way that I think that you're going to get the level of service that you get currently. And I would point to, other communities that have done that and ask them, what their satisfaction is with that particular level of service. And I don't think it would be even close to what the township residents here would tell you.
And don't get me wrong, I hope you guys are around forever.
Me too.
But it's something that popped into my mind, and I thought, well, maybe that's something that should be considered too. To the fire chief, you guys have an arrangement where we're covering Waterford Township Fire Department is covering Pontiac. Is it right? Is there some cost redemption from the city of Pontiac for?
Yeah, the city of Pontiac in 2018 is paying $7.1 million for fire service into the township.
And is there a plan that will rise?
It goes up 5% every year, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, it started going up in 2016 was the first time it went up. by 5%. We also cover the city of Lake Angeles, and the city of Lake Angeles' contract also goes up at 5% every year also.
Okay, very good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Gary, can I follow up to one of those? Yes, ma'am. First of all, sir, I appreciate your comments. It's not easy to, I'm surprised it's actually easier to sit here and comment than it is to stand up there. You had mentioned that if property values increase, let's say they all go up 10%, they've been going up, let's say 5, they've been going up almost 5% for a few years now. So if property values are increasing at that rate and tax rates are based on your property value, then you made the perfectly logical point that don't we have more revenue? And I wish that were so, but because of the Headley Amendment, as I understand it, and there's lots of people here that can correct me if I'm wrong, the tax revenue that we get can be either 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. The current rate of inflation, I think Derek just told me, is like 2.1 maybe, if you want to get real technical. So about 2%. So no matter what happens to your property value, right now in Waterford, the value or the revenue collected can only be 2%. I don't know if I said that right. The taxable value of your home can only increase 2%. So what that means is, so you saw there's a graph there that showed like a slow increase. That was that 2%. But when you mix in healthcare and things like that, that to me, in my opinion, is there's not even growth. I think we're actually declining.
Yeah, I understand that. And that was just part of my question. The other part of my question was, you know, if you look back in 2008, we had 66,000 population, and now we got 70-some thousand. So that means more revenue.
That was 1980 when we had 60-some thousand.
And what do we have in 2008?
I don't know. That's Gary's job.
73,000 in Waterford.
In 2010, we had 71,707. In 2017, or with the last most recent census numbers, were 72,866.
So it's gone up a little bit.
Not very much. And I also might add that there's an increased cost in doing business. I mean, if we're talking about 1980 levels, I started police work in 1984 and I made $11,000. So there's certainly an increased cost in doing business.
Yeah, I didn't mean to pick on either. That's a point that a lot of people make. That's why I wanted to clarify that. So really, it's almost the whole point in this deal is that Headley, in my opinion, is broken, severely broken. It was never designed to absorb such a huge decline in revenues and in values of property. On the flip side, your property value goes down and your revenue goes down just as fast. It's 1 for 1. It can fly down as fast as it wants, regardless of how many police officers that causes to get laid off or fired or firemen, etc. But on the upside, it can only increase so much. It's because it was written in the 90s when the economy was getting better and better and better, and then all of a sudden your taxes were going way high. And so they decided they didn't want it to keep going up. There's a limit. I don't disagree with that, but the problem is we got down so deep in the hole and we have yet to come out of it. You can see the economy's doing better. They're building houses on property in Waterford that was never even built on in the 90s. I mean, things are fantastic as far as my real world goes. But when you're government and you're operating under Headley, things aren't very good at all. They're actually, again, I think, declining.
Derek, the fire millages, the fire department has three fire millages. Didn't one of those actually go down in 16 or 17? Yeah, and actually, because of the Headley Amendment, the millage money that was collected for just one of the millages actually decreased. And even though inflation was what it was, it actually went down, which I don't, again, like Mike said, I don't completely understand that, but that's the way it works. It's the formulas that the state created.
Gary, I got a question for Chief Underwood. I just want to clarify what the gentleman said. He was talking about contracting police out to local county, and you stated it was $154,000.
146.
146,000, 126. My question to you is, why did Pontiac go over to the county to spend more money when they were broke? And the same with fire, where they got a better rate when we went over there.
Well, there's additional costs to go along with that. I mean, there are other operating costs as well, but we have, like I said, all that infrastructure in place, and it wouldn't be an additional cost to us. Why they made that leap, I have no idea. You'd have to ask them that question. But for for us, I don't think it makes any sense at all.
Well, Pontiac had all that in place too when they went over to them. I just,
Well, the
it
other,
don't make sense to me what you.
well, part of the issue is that there's a continuing cost with a lot of that infrastructure, which we have been able to sustain. There's, you know, we don't operate with the same equipment we did in 1980. We don't operate with the same vehicles that we did in 1980. We've been able to sustain a lot of that cost, and a lot of it most recently at no cost to the taxpayer. We've built up an amount of money through drug forfeiture and other revenue that has been generated by the police department that doesn't come from the taxpayer. So we have an amount of money that continue to fill some of those holes over a period of time when we can make those expenditures and they're within the guidelines. And we will continue to do that as often as we can. I don't know that Pontiac had that luxury, I would say, at the time.
Oh, I believe they did have it at the time, but I just wanted to clarify. I was just a little confused when you said it was $146 a year for a deputy, and ours cost about $126. But I think it might be lower than that. You can check your facts.
You can check on the Oakland County contract costs are right there. And you can also speak with the court as well, because they're the ones who came up with that figure. They're the ones who made that request and came up with that figure.
And I'm not suggesting go to the county, but I just want to clarify what he was saying, because I was a little confused about the price. And it just made me wonder, why would Pontiac go over to them with police and fire if it was worth more money? Because they were out of money. They're bankrupt.
Well, they had other issues as well. It's not just those personnel and the operating costs. They had legacy costs that they couldn't fund. They had
Join the club.
well, and that's part of the problem, and that's part of the problem with every municipal entity in this state. And there are some municipalities that have taken steps towards solving that problem, and there are some that have sat on their hands and they can't. There's no way they can fix the problem. And we have begun to try and fix that problem or address that problem. And as the state legislature most recently mandated, there's going to have to be a plan for these municipalities to be able to fix that problem. And we are moving towards addressing that. And the state has said that A, you're going to have a plan, and B, if you're not funded to a specific percentage, that you're going to have to show us you have a plan moving towards that. I don't believe for 1 second that Pontiac at the time could have even made any steps towards that. And I think they were at a point where they had no other option.
Okay, is there anybody else in the public? Okay, is there anybody out here from Waterford Regional Fire or Waterford PD that would like to get up and share anything?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Covey, Deputy Fire Chief, Waterford Regional Fire Department. I want to address something to Mr. Bartolata. In 2012, the Waterford Regional Fire Department was contracted to do services for the city of Pontiac. The one hidden cost that doesn't show when you contract your services out to somebody is the city or local government is responsible for all the buildings, all the HVAC units, the parking lots, the driveways, everything else associated with that. We took over service in 2012 in the city of Pontiac. The city of Pontiac is still responsible for all their buildings and the costs associated with their buildings. It can sometimes look cheaper on a piece of paper, but the reality is sometimes it is not, because those hidden costs of fixing buildings, and maintaining your critical infrastructure, which is your police buildings and your fire buildings. So I hope that helps you out with that.
Well, I was here in 12, you know, when they went over, and I know they did some repairs that they were going to stick Waterford with until I voiced my opinion about it to the past supervisor, and they ended up paying for it. It was garage doors over on Huron Street there. Basically, they're giving us the bill for it. I seen it on the bill payment. I go, this is outrageous. We don't own the buildings. We're just we're tenants there. So I understand, yeah. I don't understand what your point was. I know that Pontiac has to maintain their property just like Waterford maintains their property.
The only thing I was pointing out is that there was an emergency manager that came in 2012 in the city of Pontiac and made decisions for the city of Pontiac. All I'm trying to state is that the simple fact is that if you contract outside services like the Oakland County Sheriff to come here, there are still additional costs that this township is going to have to go through, which is maintaining the police buildings and all the infrastructure around it. I'm just trying to clarify that it's not just $150,000 for a police officer, it's the buildings and everything that goes along with that.
You know, let me clarify something. I'm not suggesting that we go to the county there. I just want to clarify what Chief Underwood said about the cost per officer, per deputy over there, and I thought the numbers were way off there. That's the only thing I was asking. I'll make it very, very clear. I'm not suggesting that we go to the county.
And I wasn't accusing you of saying go to the county, what I'm trying to tell you is that there's costs that aren't just the cost per person to maintain the bills, and clarify that for the residents that are here for the SAD, so they understand there's more to than just hiring a police officer to do a job or a firefighter. Thank you.
Thank you, DC Covey. Is there anybody else who'd like to come up here at this time? There's got to be somebody who has some ideas they want to share. See a lot of familiar faces out in the crowd.
I'd like to make another comment that might trigger somebody's,
You're going to fire somebody up, aren't you?
you know, our budget people tell us that Waterford is the poster child for this funding crisis that every municipality is in. If you go back to the, if you can find that, there's a list on one of our sites of the measures that we took to confront the shortfalls over the years. We have found every possible way to wring dollars out of our budget and save staffing. And those things on that list were, we closed
Slide 17.
We've closed the defined benefit system. We've changed retiree health care, eliminated retiree health care. We've reduced staff numbers. We've cut the cost of health care, as well as the contract to bring money in with the Pontiac contract. So we haven't been sitting on our laurels just waiting for money to fall through the ceiling. We've done everything we possibly can, and it's still not enough. The state is reluctant to do anything with the state revenue sharing, which they keep cutting every year, and they're leaving us to fend for ourselves. So we are the poster child for doing everything right and still not having enough money to operate at the level the residents want us to operate.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Sergeant Ross, the Waterford Police Department. I'm a lot more comfortable interviewing somebody in the interview room who's just committed a horrendous crime than coming up here and speaking to all of you. So I apologize if I get a little confused. Something that people forget from 1980 till now is, like the chief addressed, was the cost of doing business, but significantly it's the type of business that we do. It's changed significantly from 1980. 1980, the police ran you down and cuffed you, and then off you went. That's the only thing. The only interaction you ever had with the police was whether it was crime, and that was all. And a lot of the fire department, you call something was on fire, that was it. There was almost no EMS back in 1980. But luckily, I scored a little higher in the test, so I was able to become a police officer instead of a fireman. So I can only address the police.
That's the only thing you got up there.
Here we go. Here we go.
That'll stir some conversation.
You know, as the chief said, a lot of us, the majority of we either grew up in this township, still live in this township. We have a long vested interest. Half of my family still lives here. My mother has lived here for almost 42 years now. She volunteers at the police department. So we're all invested in the police department. That's something you get different than contracting out to a sheriff's office where you get transient officers. They just fill in the blanks. You'll get an officer from Springfield, you're just getting kind of a warm body. What's a warm body really worth to you here? They can do the functionary stuff, but they don't do a lot of things that the police department really does now. We try to be more partners with the community than we are law enforcement. For example, the Hope Not Handcuffs, which we just started through Chief Underwood, that was we're one of the first departments in Oakland County to engage in that. We'd rather help people than just break that cycle of just locking them up and throwing them away. Again, that's nothing you're going to get when you get people that are just transient officers coming in. They don't understand, there's no relationships with the community. Our school liaisons are fantastic. You know, they've worked decades and have followed students through their entire careers. I'm drawing a blank on the name. The Red Wings player, Daryl Larkin. A lot of the officers were liaisons with them in the schools, and then coaches with them through his different careers, and still on a first-name basis with them. And that's an arc from the span of a life from second grade on to become one of the best players in the NHL. You're not going to get that again with contract officers coming in. Just today, I met with the Waterford Ministries Association, and we're trying to have a partnership with them so that, as I explained it to them, we do mutual aid with other departments. White Lake needs our help, we will help White Lake Police Department, and vice versa, they'll call us. We don't do that a lot with the community so much, but we're trying. And so that's a kind of an avenue that we're working with the ministries. Then contact us, let us help you with your problems, and then you're there for us when we need you. And again, you're not going to do that with someone that you just contracted to, just doing the basics, following the motor vehicle code, and not understanding the needs of Waterford citizens. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, Brian.
Is there anybody else who would like to come up and speak?
Well, I guess I can make another comment. I think started again. You know, we voted on this, and I'm going to board, we voted on putting this SAD on the ballot in August 7th primary. I was the only one that voted against it. I thought that it should be, when you're asking taxpayers to dig deep in their pockets, I think it should go in a general election instead of a primary when less people come out. So you should know the percentages, they're a lot lower coming out. Your response to me was people should educate themselves. It's true, but they don't, you know, so, and I said it so privately to the board members and the public, I'm not against letting the voters decide if we need more money. There's no doubt. I know how hard Barb and Derek work on the budget. I see the numbers. We are in trouble. But I just think it was wrong to put it on the primary instead of the general election.
Have a comment?
Can I touch on that first, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So the public understands, I require every department head in Waterford Township as of August 1st of every calendar year to have their following year preliminary budget turned over to the budget people. Payroll does a payroll part of it, budget does a budget, and they start the 1st of August, start crunching it. Well, primary ballot this year is August 7th. Okay, by the 3rd week of October, we're having our preliminary final budget meetings, round 1, round 2, to determine what for this year, our 2019 budget is. And this is still a week and a half ahead of the general election. We have our budget in place typically by the end of October for the following calendar year. Now, you wait till November 6th for that to go on the ballot, and this is the reasoning behind this. It goes on the ballot November 6th. We've got 5 weeks to complete our budget and have it turned into the state of Michigan, complete our budget, adopt it as a board, and turn it into the state of Michigan by December 15th. So what takes from August 1st to the end of October, we're gonna have to try and cram into a 5-week period if we don't know what the financing and the funding is gonna be prior to that. So that's the primary, no pun intended, the reason we put it on the primary ballot, so we have time to put the funding in place, work on our budget, see what the numbers are, re-crunch them and make sure they are what we projected them to be. And then we can have our budget in place for 2019. So again, like I said, it's one of those things you look at, you have to make decisions, and that's why it got chose to put on, the primary reason it got chose to put on the primary ballot. That means because then you got, like I said, is basically 1 week into our budgeting period. But if you take it that we've got 5 weeks left to put a budget together that typically takes all of August, September, October. You gotta do something 5 weeks, which normally takes 12 to 13 weeks. So that's why we opted to put it on the primary ballot.
Yes, I got one other question, probably directed to Derek and Barb, is if this SAD failed, what next? Are we facing layoffs in other departments to keep our public safety going? Has that been discussed yet?
The budget people don't lay people out. They don't make those decisions. The township board and the department heads make those decisions. But I have opted not to talk about Plan B because I don't want to get to the point where we're telling people, you know, okay, we're going to do this, and this, if it doesn't pass, because I don't see that. I want the people to look at it for the right reasons and understand it. And if it gets turned down, then at budget time, we make those decisions, what we have to do for the following year. But just to give a short example, not to go on and on and on, when I first came in as supervisor on November 20th of 2012, to give you an example, these people had done a phenomenal job working on the budget. The previous or outgoing board, which we rolled over 5 board members, had not put the budget in place for the 2013 calendar year. We walked in and I think the numbers originally were projected there was going to be a $2.3 million deficit when they were talking about the SAD back in 2008 when they were talking about that, or 2012, excuse me, they were talking about the SAD in 2012, but the actual numbers were like 1.5 or 1.6 million, and we just come in, and I was probably the least liked person in Shrine Township because it was no. And when all the numbers got crunched, we went from looking at $1.5 million deficit to $5,755 in the black. And that was the reality of that. Okay, you saw the number this year, it's 1.81 million in the red. So we've done everything we can do, and I can crunch numbers with any accountant that wants to crunch numbers. I am a numbers person, and I'm very, very good at it, and I take pride in it. But the bottom line is, there's no numbers left to crunch. Well, you can crunch all the numbers you want, but when you're done crunching, all you got is dust. There's no money left to fund this. This is the reality of it. And we were talking to the budget the other day, and they kind of chuckle a bit, say inflation goes up at 2%. Well, gas went from $2.71 to $2.99 on Saturday morning. And I know if you do the math, and again, lumber's off the charts, and this is off the charts. So I'm suspect of the inflation numbers that we get from the federal government. Not that the federal government or the Trump administration are bad people, I'm not saying that. But inflation is just under 2.1%, but you see some of these numbers just go out of sight in price, and you look what you paid last year, and you look what you paid this year, and it's going to be more. So again, so it's my belief that inflation is actually going up greater than the taxable value is, and that's why that number's changed from a black number to a red number. We can't keep up. It doesn't work, and that shows you right there. The math itself shows you that. So again, it's just, that's a reality of it. No, I don't want to pay any more taxes either, and I'm going to have to pay them too, because obviously I'm a township resident. But the reality is, in order for us to keep functioning at a rate, at a higher rate than what we are, and what lesser than what we really truly need to be, but what will help us all, that's a necessity that's SAD to help out our public safety. It's just, it really, I put hundreds of hours into this, and it wasn't in what we presented it to you in the other ways. Chief, would you have anything?
No, you covered things.
Okay.
I want to also make a statement. We've talked about local factors that are our population and our taxable value because of how the amendment are capped. The state, if you look at the state and their funding source to municipalities, it's almost as if the state is divesting itself from funding local municipalities, which is fine, but you don't see your state taxes going down. So that leaves the local municipality to make up for the deficit. It was noted on one of the slides that we are $1.6 million down in state revenue sharing. Somebody's got to make up for it. And so I will give our whole board credit. We've had state representatives in here to address this, to see what our projected numbers are for state revenue, and they're just going down. So it's a multifactorial problem. It's not just the Headley Amendment. We've got the state playing into it also.
And again, Karen, that's cumulative. That $1.6 million is cumulative.
Right.
Multiply it by 10 years, that's $16 million. 1.6, $16 million lost that the township is not having.
And one thing about an SAD, this isn't money we're paying into other governmental entities. You saw the circle there earlier where 22 cents on the dollar comes back to Waterford. This SAD all stays in Waterford Township. It benefits Waterford Township. It isn't, goes into a pool, then it gets distributed amongst all the other parties. And once again, federal, state, county, local, we're the low man on the totem pole, we get the least of the contribution. Every penny from this SAD stays in Waterford Township for Waterford Regional Fire and Waterford Police Department. It isn't like we're putting it in and it goes into projects in Detroit, and Flint, and Pontiac, and other municipalities. The good thing about that is it all stays in Waterford Township. We benefit from every penny of that 100%. That's our money. Yes, sir.
Just one other comment. Given the state of inflation, and as an example, the value or the cost of gasoline today, in both the fire department and the police department, that's got to be a good portion of their budget, because they're using that continuously all along. Is the new budget that you're proposing with the SAD enough to cover that kind of inflation coming up?
Well, we did put some inflationary clauses into that. We did project it out over a 5-year period. The SAD is for 12 years. We projected out the first 5 years we built. We typically tried to look at 3 years, but we projected out 5 years. But again, it's the unknown that concerns me, but we did factor that in. But like I said, when we start getting new fire trucks, we'll get rid of old fire trucks, so we'll still be putting fuel and running the same amount of vehicles. We won't be running more vehicles in that regard. So it should be a wash, except it should work out with the numbers that we projected out for the next 5 years. Yep.
And that's a number that we wrestle with all the time as far as fuel costs. You print your year-to-date budget, and you're looking at those items, especially fuel costs. For us, truck repair is a huge cost, and I have to balance those out. And I will get emails that say this one's heading towards the red, better get it black. And but I watch that all the time, and we have to make adjustments for those daily costs. And again, that goes to what Mr. Wall said, the cost of business just goes up. Cost of uniforms, the cost of, the fire service, we're doing more than ever before we're not, Sergeant Ross said something about what we're doing, and I'm sorry he didn't make it to the fire department. We would gladly accept him, Chief Underwood. We are doing more than just putting the water on fire. We're pulling EMS calls, we're pulling hazardous materials calls, tech rescue calls. If you are paying attention to the news, you can see the shootings, the school shootings. Our police officers and firefighters are training together now to go in and enter buildings together. What we are doing is we are an all hazards emergency service between police and fire.
Good point, Chief Lyman. Is there anybody else that would like to come up here? I know there's got to be people just itching to get up here. Here we go. Okay.
I'm Bill McMaster with the Taxpayers United Michigan Foundation. I was state chairman of the Headley Tax Limitation Amendment in 1978, and Dick Headley was the boss. Over the years, we have encountered a number of efforts to get around the Headley Amendment, oftentimes for very worthy causes. We have only had a brief look at what you're trying to do with this assessment, but it appears that it is a violation of the Headley Amendment in the state constitution. It deserves obviously more study, and we will apply that. What we're concerned about is it appears that it's a new layer of government and not a part of the elected township, that the special assessment is creating a new entity, and it looks like it's double taxation. It's taxation without representation in this particular setup. I just wanted to alert you to the fact that before you go too far down this road, that we've got considerable concern about the use of a special assessment, especially for 20 years.
12.
It's 12 years.
12 years, I'm sorry.
You didn't know that because you just came in like 2 minutes ago.
I didn't hear you.
I said you didn't know that because you just came in 2 minutes ago. You also don't know everything else that we've talked about today. You don't know how many police officers there are in Waterford. You don't know what the national average is, I bet. I bet you don't know how many firemen there are. I bet you don't know how our fire department's funded. I know who you are, and you're for no taxes. You're an extremist that I've never seen another person support you or talk in that positive sense about you. You know who you are. You're not to be listened to as far as I'm concerned. Your views are beyond anything I would even call right-wing.
Mike, he still has the right to speak.
That's fine, you can talk all you
Please
want.
let him finish. Go ahead, sir.
One of the things that we know probably better than anybody is the Headley Amendment. What our concerns are is the people's right to vote on tax hikes.
Realize this is going on a ballot to vote. You realize this is going out for a public vote. We are not.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay.
And you're not the first ones to attempt to go this way in the thing. So I just wanted to alert you that there is concern, not just with Bill McMaster, my friend, but with the statewide organization of Taxpayers United. Thank you.
Just so you know, the very first thing we did with this is run this through Township Legal Counsel. Made it a point to run it by Township Legal Counsel, to do the research on it, question it, review. Everything we've done so far has gone through Township Legal Counsel, and this has never come up one time in conversation with this gentleman just brought up. Not saying he's right, Township Legal Counsel's wrong, but my experience with our Township Legal Counselors, they're very knowledgeable. And again, like I said, it's just taxation without representation, you know, statements, stuff like that. So again, but I will contact Township Legal Counsel around and share these concerns with them. But I truly believe I'll hear back from him exactly what we heard prior to this. What we're doing is legal.
If I can add in the resolution that the Township Board adopted, and the first recital says, the State of Michigan, Public Act number 33 of 1951, as amended, allows townships to raise money for police and fire departments by special assessment, and provides for township boards to submit the question of doing so to the voters at an election. Michigan Public Act number 33 of 1951.
Thank you, Clerk. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I didn't want to get up, but
You're up.
Michael incensed me with his attack on this gentleman, because that's my issue. My issue is,
Take your name, please.
Danette Coyle, Tina Marie, Waterford. My issue is, I was born and raised in Waterford, and I left for a while, and I'm back now. And our taxes with this new SAD will go up $1,000 this year. Yes, I just figured it out. That according to your numbers, our taxes will go up $1,000 this year, 2018. And we just moved in the house less than a year ago. So, I mean, with all the costs that you've talked about in our fixed income, the only raises we got this year was total $300. So, I mean, I know we're not the only seniors in this situation, and this is where this issue is coming at. That's coming out of our pockets. I appreciate the fire department. I appreciate the police department. I have relatives that have retired from both departments, not Waterford, Pontiac, but it doesn't matter. And I mean, I understand all this, but you can only drain so much from us as the taxpayers that you can. I mean, we don't have anything extra. $1,000 a year will be significant from our tax.
Start with, it won't be on the 2018 taxes. It wouldn't come out. It won't come out till 2019. It would go on the 29. It'll be paid in 2019. The winter tax rolls, which goes out December 1st. That will go out. It would be mailed out December 1st.
So you're saying with the 300 I get extra this year, I'm supposed to save 1,000 for next year?
Well, again,
That's the point. That's part of it. Then my second comment is, and it's basically a question. So 12 years up the road, we're going to have this issue again?
No, it goes
How
back.
are we going to take care of this?
It goes back on the ballot in 12 years.
That's my point.
Last time it was presented in 2012, it was proposed as the forever tax. So we put a limit. So we put it in 12 years.
2012.
That was in 2012.
Okay. So that was the forever tax.
That was, it
didn't pass.
It
It didn't pass.
It was,
Okay.
yeah.
See, there's some things I don't know because I wasn't.
Yes,
I
in
didn't know.
2012, there was an SAD for police only on the 2012 ballot, and it was looked, referred to as the forever tax.
Right. Okay, well, those are my couple comments.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would say is that the numbers I've been told for the average household is $14 a month is what this would add up to. For the average household, I know that's not necessarily yours.
I just figured it out.
Yeah, you may live in a nicer house.
Are you,
Well, I shouldn't be penalized for that.
ma'am, are you counting the entire, your entire tax bill? Because remember, not your entire, but remember, not your entire tax bill does not go to Waterford Township.
Okay, so I'm using the figures that were posted.
I understand, I just want to make sure that the numbers that you had for yourself for your own house,
Yes.
I want you to understand that only a portion of that goes to Waterford Township. If you looked at that pie chart, if you looked at the pie chart, 50% of your tax dollar, of every dollar that you pay goes to the school district.
Please, I don't want to argue with you.
I'm not trying to argue.
The figures that you guys provided, I know what my house is worth because we were just recently assessed after we moved in, and I understand all that. And I'm using that figure, and I'm using your annual figure. Okay?
Sure. I'd love to sit down and talk with you and maybe pull that out through the treasurer's office so we can help you make sure that's the right number.
Help me what? You're not going to
So we can help you understand that number, ma'am, that's all.
Well, I'm not the only one asking these questions, by the way. I might be the only one here, but I'm not the only one.
And that's why Ms. Camilleri said that we're going to put something on the website so you can plug your address in.
That would be
you
wonderful.
can see what the tax rate is going to be.
That would be wonderful, actually. Thank you.
And again, that's why we're putting it on the ballot and giving the public the option to vote. We're not forcing it on anybody.
That's absolutely.
That's why we're doing it like this in the American way. That's how we do things in this country. And again, they're as American as they come, so you understand.
Certainly.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up here this time? Anybody else from police and fire? Okay, anybody else on the board have comments they would like to make? Closing comments for the police chief or fire chief? I don't know. Chief Underwood.
Yeah, I'd like to just address the cost, as we discussed previously, in an outsourcing situation. As I spoke previously, around $146,000. As I pull it up on the website, it's actually closer to $152,000. The other thing is that with regards to this being on the primary ballot as opposed to the general election, in addition to what Mr. Wall already said, if in fact we are successful, there is a time, once January hits and this money is available, we want to be able to hit the ground with our feet moving. And there's a time that it takes in order to be able to recruit and test and conduct background investigations and get these people on board. So if we wait until November and December, we're talking about months down the road into the next year where we anticipate 6 more retirements. So the idea is to make this happen as quickly as we can so that we can continue to do what we do. 2 additional points. I'm a little disheartened. We've had some meetings to discuss this. We as a group, not all the board together as a group, but the police chief, myself, the fire chief, some board members, the township supervisors, the part-time elected officials, the full-time elected officials, and we've had discussions about this. We've had discussions about the ballot timing. We've had discussions about being committed to Plan A, which is what we have to be. We have to be committed to Plan A. Plan B is what we'll have to deal with if this doesn't work. But right now, we have to spend our time being committed to Plan A. And I'm a little disheartened, quite honestly, that during some of those meetings, you never brought up this ballot issue and you never brought up this Plan B issue. But you brought it up here on this podium for public consumption, but you didn't ask that question in a private setting. And I'm a little disheartened by that.
Well, maybe you weren't sitting in the meeting.
No, I was at all the meetings.
Not very much that. You know what, I'm with you tomorrow and we'll find out exactly what the costs are, because I think you're figuring it out. And, you know, you can be mad at me for representing the people out there.
That's not why I'm mad. That's why we're all here. We're all here to do exactly what we do for all the people of this
You know,
township.
these meetings went on for the
That's why
last
we're here.
6-9 months. You know what, I've heard different comments from different residents. You know what, I represent them. I don't represent you. I represent them out there. You don't even live in Waterford.
That's why we're here.
So,
That's exactly why we're
you can
here.
be mad at me if you want, but I'd be more than happy to discuss the numbers tomorrow with you. And I'll find out for you.
Yes, sir. Steve McCready, Marion Avenue. Chief Underwood.
Yes, sir.
Out of the 54 officers, those are all full-time?
Full-time officers, yes.
Okay. What about the reserves and the part-timers?
We have 5 part-time officers, and when we can fill all those positions, we're in the middle of, we're in the transition period as it stands right now. We're trying to fill some of those positions, some of them in the field training program. And so that 54 full-time, and that's what I compared to in 2010 with 81 full-time.
Yeah, that'd be, okay. But you're hoping to bring up the part-timers if they want, or?
Well, what we've done recently is and it hasn't been done like this in the past, we're hiring full-time and part-time from the same list. So that the idea is that we fill all our full-time positions, we fill the part-time positions, and we've already gone through that training period. So these part-timers go through the same field training program that the full-timers go through. So that gives us the opportunity that when one of those full-time positions vacates, we can move them right into a full-time job. Then we bring another part-timer in, get them through the training program, and we're able to move them into the full-time jobs as quickly as we can. One of the issues, though, as I said, with recruiting is that it's become a national epidemic. So we get these people on board, we hire them, we train them, and if they can get a full-time job somewhere, we've lost them. So it's not only an issue that we're dealing with, it's an issue that's being dealt with across the board in the whole state.
Chief Lyman.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever thought about using glider kits with your equipment?
Using what?
A glider kit.
A glider kit.
Yeah. That's where you buy the chassis and put the current parts on it.
Like rechassing, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we are rechassing rescues, and we were approved for one in early March to replace one of our rescues, and we had an ambulance that died. The engine puked out on us. It's done.
Yeah, I know. I was at that meeting.
Yep. And
while transporting a patient.
Yeah, while transporting, yes, correct. And so I came back. I went to Mr. Wall and talked to him about it, and I talked to the guy that we deal with our ambulance sales, and we were able to find a really good priced one, and it's brand new, and we saved a lot of money, and we're going to be. In fact, it should be here maybe even tomorrow. So we are looking at rechassing for our rescues. I will tell you, when we talked about this, when the deputy chief and I talked about this originally, I was very skeptical, and I mentioned it in the board meeting because we did that 20 years ago, and it was a complete failure. And I went to our guy that we deal with out of Holland, Michigan, and he's assured me that the things have completely changed the way they remount, and there are big communities like Cincinnati that they are remounting chassis. So we are looking to do that. It saves us about $60,000 off the cost of the ambulance. So, and I'd just like to say, and I'm sure Chief Underwood the same way, we at the fire department are constantly looking to save money. We are not just frivolously spending the taxpayer money. I'm a taxpayer, and I know how important that is. We are constantly looking to save the township money. So.
And on your fuel costs, are you using blended?
We are using whatever the DPW purchases. I'm not sure what you'd have to speak to the DPW person about that.
But that is purchased bulk.
Yeah. And this new tax will cost me $171 a year.
So you're pretty close right to the
On a
average.
fixed income. I guess I'll have to go collect bottles alongside the road somewhere. But, no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the, I'd like to say, I know some families that really could pay this with their bottles. It may not say much about the amount they drink, but it's in reach with bottles.
Yeah, the graph that we did put out there just indicated to simplify things. They said the average house, we had the chart up there earlier, it's like, and again, this is the average. Yours, it comes in about $4 a year about that. So if you're looking at 46 cents a day, $3.23 a week, $13.97 a month, and $167.62 annually, and that's the average house. I have a mom who'll be 92 years old this month, who's on a fixed income, and again, like I said, it's just Waterford Regional Fire has been to her house enough that they know the dog by first name. So again, like I said, and I can't tell you what it means to me to know that they are there when we need them. Our special response people here in the township, our police and fire, are top notch. Again, like I said, I've been here all my life. I've known that. I've had ties to the police department for the good reasons since I was a little kid. And they said, no, a lot of firemen had one as a neighbor as a kid. So again, they said, we are blessed in this community to have the wonderful people that we have right across the board, not only police, fire, our dispatch center, our DPW, our clerical staffs, our field people here at the township. We're very, very fortunate that we have. And again, like I said, we have crunched numbers to the point where there's no numbers left to crunch. It just isn't there. And as time goes on, you can see from the chart that was up there, the gap is getting bigger. And we just, like I said, you're required by state law to maintain a minimum amount of fund balance. It should be at 18% per se. We're there now, but if that number continues to get bigger, fund balances will diminish. And the only way we're ever going to be able to do it, you have to have product to function. So we're going to have to cut employment levels. And again, we're at 1980 employment levels already. So again, we're out of choices. We're out of choices, and we're doing this for the right reason. But again, we're giving it to the public to come in, vote, make that decision, and then the next phase will be after August 7th, the primary elections. Anybody else on the board have any other comments they'd like to make? One more time to the public. Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Bridger. I'm a battalion chief with the fire department. A couple of things to maybe help the residents who are against this and obviously don't want to have a tax increase. I'm a taxpayer myself, and believe me, I understand where the people are coming from, and nobody wants to pay more. I mean, it's not something that any of us want to do, but sometimes there's a need, there's a necessity. When I hired on this fire department back in 1991, we were averaging about 3,000 runs a year. Now in 2017, we just, in the Waterford district alone, I believe, Chief, was it we ran close to 9,000 runs?
Yes, I just closed
so,
the paper. Yes.
200% increase in call volume in the 27 years that I've been here. When I hired on, our minimum manning for the day was 12 people. That was in 1991. We currently will drop down to 14 guys a day in the Waterford district with a 200% increase in call volume. 2 more people pulling that kind of call volume. If that gives you any idea of the extra work that our firefighters are doing. Like the chief said, we haven't purchased a fire engine since 2002 until this past year. through some thrifty savings and ways to come up with the money to make this work. Our maintenance division is just bombarded daily with broken down vehicles. We're pulling vehicles out of service on a regular basis every single day, switching into another truck that's far from perfect, but better than the one that we just switched out of. So that's a daily thing that we're dealing with. Let me tell you, to the residents who may think that the township isn't doing their best to use the tax dollars wisely, I'm part of the fire union.
Sit the video down on the floor, would you? There you go. Thank you.
I'm part of the fire union. Let me tell you, they try to save money every which way, which reflects on me and, you know, my benefit package and everything else. So they are saving money every which way they can. And I just want to assure the residents of Waterford that, you know, obviously don't want to pay more. That the need for this is, we're really kind of in a desperate situation. Like I said, the state revenue sharing is so far down. There's just no other way to fund what these two departments need without an increase somewhere. So I just urge the residents to support us and vote yes when this hits the ballot.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to add that I don't believe any
If you
residents.
come up to the mic, the people at home can hear you.
I don't believe residents are against anybody in the fire department or even the work that you people have done. I think what the issue is the tax increase. I don't know how to correct that. I'm sure everyone in the United States are trying to figure this out. But that's the issue. It's nothing against anyone, any of the fire departments or even the board. It has to do with tax increases.
No.
That's the issue.
Again, and that's understood, yep, that's understood. But again, like I said, the one positive thing about the SAD is every penny that comes out of it does stay in Waterford Township. That is the utmost importance. We're not paying taxes that are leaving and coming back, like I said, 22 cents on the dollar. That's, and the construction business, 22 cents, 22% of profit was good, but when you're getting 22 cents, you're giving $1 and getting 22 back, that's not profit, that's a loss. So it just, again, it's just, that is a positive we got. So, anybody else? Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for coming in tonight and what you share with us. We appreciate it. And very, very, very cordial, very polite, and very professional, and we appreciate it. And hope to see all of you at the next board meeting. Have a good night. Thank you.